Hi folks, Dave, the Honest Audiophile. This is the Tin Hifi T2 DLC, and these are my Honest Audiophile impressions. I want to thank Linsoul for providing the Tin Hifi T2 DLC for review. Do greatly appreciate it. Linsoul, you rock. Okay, so the Tin Hifi T2 DLC, this will set you back $60 on the Linsoul website. And this is yet another variant in the family of T2s from Tin Hifi. The original T2 is my favorite, one of my favorite IEMs of all time, and I do use it as a reference, especially in the sub $100 price point when doing reviews. How does the T2 DLC compare to my favorite reference IEMs from Tin Hifi, the T2? The T2 DLC has a 4th gen DLC composite diaphragm that's 10mm dynamic. The original had a dual dynamic setup with 6mm and 10mm drivers. DLC has 32 ohms of impedance and 111 decibels of sensitivity and a frequency response of 10 Hz to 20 kHz. T2 comes in a non-standard black box. Usually Tin Hifi includes it in a white box. You get your usual little case, flip up the lid, T2 DLC sit inside, and then you have your little thing, inside area that holds accessories. No carrying case is included with the DLC. You do get the blue foam tips and then the silicone tips. I didn't use either this time because I couldn't really get them to be comfortable in my ears like other T2s. I had to go with a alternative tip. Here are the T2 DLCs, and as you can see, they are just like the originals, tank style, a little bit different. You have a blue Tin Hifi logo on the shell, and they connect with a 2-pin connection instead of MMCX. Very much a nice touch. Cable is the usual T2 cable. I don't mind it at all. Has good ear hooks, nice and light. Does twist up and tangle just a little bit every now and then, but other than that, no issues whatsoever with the cable. And I find that the comfort is okay for me. I understand that not everybody is going to enjoy the comfort of the T2, as they may find it to be just a little bit odd shaped, maybe a little too much sticking out of the ears, but I find that they go into ears and just disappear for me. Isolation of outside noises is good, just like the originals, and I find that I can wear them for hours on end. Pairing them with sources is very easy. They're not hard to drive whatsoever. I find that I do prefer them on dongles. The dongles that I preferred them on were the Periodic Audio Rhodium, the 7 Hz 71, and the Aueze S9 Pro. I know that's kind of ironic that the Aueze S9 Pro is almost double the price of the T2 DLCs, but hey, you know what? It sounded good. All right, so I did find that using sources, something that was really warm, did not pair very well, as it made them a little bit too boomy, and then something that is a little bit more analytical and cooler sounding also didn't sound very well, as that made them sound a little bit more shouty and just kind of lacked a presentation to it. So something more neutral, warm sounding had a best presentation with the T2 DLC. Before we get into the overall sonics of the Tin Hifi T2 DLC, I would like to thank those who support me through YouTube memberships and Patreon. Thank you very much for your daily and monthly sacrifices that you make to give a few dollars to the channel to help support it and to help provide gear to review, gear to review products with and compare against, and coffee to help my brain work on early mornings like this. So thank you very much for what you donate. I greatly appreciate it. If you're interested in providing money and funds to help the channel and to give back a little bit to a channel that you enjoy, please check out the links down below. All right, so the T2 DLC from Tin Hifi. This has a very fun and engaging type of sound signature. The bass on it is very much a toe tapper. It has a lot of sub bass and mid bass presence to it. There's a lot of quantity with the T2, but yeah, I still wouldn't call it bass head worthy. It's just kind of a lot of bass, but yet it's not that get down and really grab you type of bass a bass head would be looking for. This has a lot of sub bass presence to it. There is definitely some elevation there. It is a fun sound. There's decent amount of texture and a good amount of impact. Overall, it's not the most detailed or the best resolving bass, but it is a fun sounding bass and it does the job for me. Tone and timbre of the bass is good. Overall, it is more mid bass and sub bass focused than upper bass focused. The mids have a warmth to them. They have a nice coziness about them as far as presentation of vocals and instruments. It's a little bit more elevated and forward than I like, but at the same time, it's not like shouty and being aggressive, but it is a little bit too much center focused and too elevated. Overall, the tone and timbre of it is good. The detail retrieval and resolution, like the bass, is just all right. It's not the best there is. I do wish that the upper mids were not quite as forward and as borderline aggressive and bright. Treble. Gotta talk about the treble. Lower treble is very much emphasized like the upper mids, and they're borderline hot and borderline aggressive, but they never really cross that line. But if you're sensitive to upper mids and treble, these may bother you. But then the treble dips out and it kind of lacks energy and sparkle and life, and it just kind of sounds dull and bland. And then the upper treble is elevated, and it kind of attempts to bring back a little bit of what is missing, but it doesn't do a good job, and it just becomes a little bit shimmery and glary and glassy up top instead of being more natural and accurate. And the treble sounds unnatural. It just sounds bland and just lacking life. So overall, I find that they are a more fun sound, but a little bit on the dull end of things. It's not a very engaging sound unless you're more focused on the bass and in the mids. Soundstage wise, they're average width. Nothing special here. It doesn't go into cramped mode, but also it doesn't really expand things. It just kind of is there, and it's not really a natural sounding width either. Depth and layering kind of struggle. They do get a little bit confused on more detailed tracks and more involved tracks with instruments and things going on. They'll get a little confused and muddled. Overall, it's an okay soundstage in the way that it handles things, but it's not really the best there is at this price point. And there just seems to be a lack of air and a lack of space, and things just kind of are just sitting there. Imaging is okay. It kind of tracks things. You can kind of place things as they go across the stage or in the neighborhood, but it's kind of a big neighborhood. It's not really a very specific and direct. So overall, the T2 DLC, it's an okay sounding IEM. I find it to be fun and engaging. On bassier mids focused, but treble is just a troublesome spot for me, and I just find it to sound dull, and it's just not very engaging up top. How does it compare to the original sibling, the T2? I find that the original T2 is just overall a better sound for me. I prefer it. It's more of a neutral reference sound. and it has better spacing and more accurate soundstage and better depth and layering. It has better tone and timbre, and overall detail retrieval and resolution is about the same on it, even though it is more clear and clean on the T2. I just find that the T2 is my preference. You may like a little bit more bassy sound of the T2 DLC. And then when you compare it to something that's a little bit more expensive, the Titan S from Dunu, I find that the Dunu Titan S has better tone and timbre, just like the T2 original, and also it is better detailed and better resolving, and is more controlled and has more sparkle and energy, just like the original T2 does. And it is a more engaging and more natural and neutral sound, other than the bassy sound of the T2 DLC. T2 DLC, it's an okay, but you can do better in the price point. It's been Dave, the Honest Audiophile. Thank you for watching, and I'll catch you in the next video. Speaking of next video, somewhere in screen, subscription links, notification bells. If you haven't already, please check those off. Then don't forget to give a thumbs up or a thumbs down to the video. And hey, I understand if you have to give a thumbs down. Anyways, check out the links down below. There's all kinds of information down there regarding how you can contact the channel, follow the channel, support the channel. All that kind of stuff is down below, along with gear recommendations and music lists that were used and all kinds of other things down below. So check out the links. And then don't forget to enjoy the music, and that honesty is the best policy.